New Zealand may be a small country, but in the wider world what we do, use and consume affects lives everywhere. So I'm on a mission to see how we're treating our backyards both here and further afield. What are we doing to be cleaner and greener? What do we need to change? And what does the future hold? So join me to Radar as I go global. Don't worry, I'll plant plenty of trees to offset the travel. Now, where's my passport? They're hoary old sayings. One man's trash is another man's treasure. Waste not, want not. Or as I always like to say, it's not rubbish, it's a resource. Yeah, my mother generally doesn't tend to agree with that. Take, for example, these chips. Who would ever have thought that the waste product of creating potato chips, starch from potatoes, would ever be useful in motor racing? Well, it is. It's a very good example of looking at something and thinking, that's a product that no one could possibly want. It's waste. And someone else looking at it and going, I think I've got a use for that. That's not waste, that's a resource. That's not trash, it's a treasure. Let's not throw it away. Waste is one of our few solid growth industries. In Raglan, it's the town's biggest employer. The town's trash used to be biffed in a big hole until extreme waste started in 2000. Now the community collects and sorts their resource, creating jobs for 26 locals. Great thing about this is you get to have a good look around town. You never come on back streets. When you go into a little town, you always come up the main road, buy a pie, go on. And there's all this other action happening. People living their lives, throwing out their trash. What's the best thing about the job? I suppose you get to see where all the parties happen. Yeah. Lots of bottles outside their house. That's a party house. Might call around on the weekend. The secret's out.
Humans are always going to make waste.
No denying that. This is all thanks to a bloke called Rick, who had the vision and passion to convince the council to let Raglan look after its resource.
Let's get on.
Very well, I think. It's incredible.
Doing well.
You know, to think that at one stage all of this could have just been sent off and put in a hole.
Yeah, no, valuable resource.
And it's kind of, I guess, it's a bit of a mind shift, really, isn't it? Rather than thinking of it as rubbish, thinking
that's
of it
right.
as a resource.
Up to, I think it's up to $600 a tonne for these.
Yeah.
So,
why aren't more towns doing it?
well, there should be.
Can you imagine the amount that could be generated if every town, all those little cities, suburbs, all said, no, we don't want to see it, put into one bin and trucked off.
Yep. Even if you just did ones and twos, you would produce 40,000 jobs overnight. If the country needs more employment, this is a great place to start. And all of these beautiful resources being buried in the ground.
It's a bit of a crime.
Yeah.
It is a crime, isn't it, in some ways?
Crime, yeah.
What's the biggest problem?
What the rubbish bags are full of now is packaging which is unrecyclable. And so I think that's a responsibility for the companies who produce it.
You think a little bit of community action where, if we can't recycle it, we send them back from whence they came. If you don't want us to send them back, then maybe put it in something a little bit more convenient.
Yep, or set up onshore facilities for the processing of it.
The affluent society buys more rubbish every year. Packaging is good for business, keeps goods clean, attracts customers, but more packaging.
Who do you think should be most responsible for the cost of rubbish disposal?
The manufacturer, if he had my rubbish tin every week, he'd do something about it.
Raglan is aiming for zero waste to landfill by 2020. Part of making that happen is knowing what people throw away. What's happening here?
Waste audit.
Waste audits.
Waste audit.
In some ways, it's kind of like a little modern-day sort of archaeology, isn't it? Fossicking through and seeing what the community's all about via their rubbish.
Yeah.
So if you had any advice for people, what would it be?
Worm farms and compost bins, biggie. Yeah. As soon as your food scraps are moved out of all of that, you're not dealing with a stinky bin.
What's the big thing sort of that you go, God?
I would say non-recyclable packaging, actually.
Look at those. Those are the devil, aren't they?
Yeah.
Recycling is the art of leaving rubbish on the shelves and making sure all of the consumer goods you have are at least packaged in recyclable packaging.
What's the biggest culprit?
Tetra Paks. What else?
Sauce bottle?
Nothing really needs to be in here. It could be made from other materials that are recyclable, compostable.
And why the recycling triangle isn't that big up there so that we don't have little old ladies kind of squinting, and us.
What's going to happen to that now?
Up to Hampton Downs. One lovely big hole.
Doesn't need to, does it?
No.
We could eradicate it. And one day, all of this will be a thing of the past. Raglan's always had a hippie surf town image.
board rider Aaron Kiriopa is serious about doing his bit for zero waste, taking reject surfboards and carving them into highly desirable art.
Yeah, they just bin these ones that are blown wrong, destined for landfill. I'm trying to make their rubbish attractive.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, this one is like about the environment. I chose the whitebait.
Okay,
And
so whereabouts will be?
all the black bits of the eyes, his hands, and these stitches here. And they just show how the environment's all connected to each other. So I've pretty much moulded all the seawater running over the top.
Where do they sell? All over the world?
Yeah, pretty much. I have no... I purposely chose not to be part of the marketing machine. I have to hide in places like this.
In the woolshed.
Be in the starlings.
Yeah. You're in the
So I just make my own little world.
Yeah, man. Oh, I think there's a lot of people out there right now who are probably really jealous of that.
I'm pretty lucky. 1 week feels like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's fun or I'm just so engrossed in it. I don't know.
When you're out there on your pedal board, does it make you think about it, the whole thing, just a little bit differently?
Oh, totally, yeah. Because I'm waiting to be inspired by the next move that I'm going to take back to the shed, you know. Oh, I'm just overwhelmed at who buys it. They take away all these ideas of mine. Well, it's with them now. And I didn't have to say a word, I just... And for me to know that, you know, people are getting a buzz out of that purely by recycling something that's just going to be wasted. Got lots of friends involved in aiming for zero waste in our town, but, you know, you wake up in the morning with that in your mind and you always leave the house with your best foot forward, eh? So pure things come of it, you know, for me anyway. Powers will go in here.
Aaron's boards fetch up to $15,000 each, all inspired by something someone else wanted to throw away. While Raglan is dealing positively with man's wastefulness, I'm bound for England to see if dealing with man's personal waste can be just as much of a success story. Prior to moving to Wellington, architecture professors Robert and Brenda Vale left their mark on the British landscape.
When people think of housing estates or housing projects in England, they quite often think of rather formless, tall concrete structures filled with desperate humanity, lifts that don't work and smell of wee, junkies everywhere, burned out cars outside, places where police feed a tread. But I'm going to go to a housing project tomorrow that I suspect is quite different from that. In fact, so different that I'm going to take my togs. I'm quite looking forward to it.
Camping it up in Sherwood Forest. Hopefully I won't be bothered by too many merry men.
Of course, when it comes to waste, there is one waste product for which we are directly responsible. Yeah, it's poo. And dealing with our own waste doesn't have to involve the outlay of millions of dollars. There actually are some very simple ways of dealing with the problem. Nature's a good example. Nature was designed to solve problems. And here's a problem we need solving. What do I do with my poo?
I'm in Nottingham at the Hockerton Housing Project. Nick lives here. He helped build it, and he's keen to show me how waste helped create his piece of paradise.
It'd been pasture for maybe 200 years. We've dug this pond out, and bizarrely, while we were digging it out, we actually found out that this area had probably been a very shallow lake many thousands of years ago. So we were simply recreating something that should have been there in the first place.
It's home to 5 families with whom I'm about to become more intimate than I'd expected.
This is the first stage of the septic tank, which is a settlement chamber for all the waste coming from the houses.
I've just got a little bit of with some of the aroma. It's not as bad as you would imagine.
It's not. If a septic tank's working really well, it'll actually digest all its own waste. Keeps on just digesting itself. We decided that we'd actually start to take some of the solids out and compost them. And that's what we do once a quarter. We've got a very long-handled pooper scooper, which you dip down there and push it through the crust, and then when you pull it back up, scoop so much out, and you load it into a bucket and cart it off into the woods. Yeah, we compost it over there, and that basically just keeps it ticking over.
So essentially from here, it's really the black water, isn't it, that goes into that secondary tank and then off into the reed bed.
So it's a liquid effluent we're dealing with at that stage. Not the place to fall into.
Not the place to fall into.
Highly corrosive. Rot steel. So if you ever want to get rid of a body, drop
so
it in
useful.
There. It's at least 2 metres deep under there.
Good Lord.
So this is obviously the reed bed.
All the area behind this gabion wall, the gabions are wire baskets which are filled with limestone chunks, so the water can move through it, but keeps all the reeds back.
So they essentially just sit on the surface of the water
That's
and all
right.
their roots dangle down into it. And...
That's right. So you imagine like a curtain, a bit like the beads hanging down in doorways, but that throughout the whole of the reed bed area. And because the roots oxygenate the water, then all the bugs and bacteria live on the roots, and then they consume the nutrients that come through from the waste stream from the septic tank.
Oh.
This is a large reed bed, so it's probably big enough for 100 people or more. We could manage with something maybe a quarter of that size, which should do just as well. A little bit bigger than this, it would treat the whole village, but clearly it makes a great wildlife area as well.
Yeah.
It's isolated, and birds nest in there, and ducks and coots and moorhens and... So
wonderful, isn't it?
It's, you know, you can't lose, really.
But, you know, just a wonderful sort of little nature nook. How sanitary is the water in there?
The water in the main part of the lake is European bathing quality. And if you want to, you can swim in the reed bed as well, because that's just as good.
Nature has provided the best treatment plan of all. No sort of detectable fecal matter.
No.
And you've got to know that this is working well, because otherwise you wouldn't have teenage girls floating around on what is essentially an effluent pond if it wasn't working, would it? You know, because they are generally a really good sort of litmus test.
Yes, I want to say no, because they're all guests.
Oh, of course they are. They probably have no idea. Let's not tell them.
And there's another Eco-Kiwi contribution right here.
In this green and pleasant field, a little slice of England lies a New Zealander.
Yes. Yes, the first green burial, and it started off a bit of interest. That's Rusty, he's from New Zealand, but lived in the UK. He just used to love working up here, did a lot of fencing. When he found out he was very ill, he decided he wanted to be buried up here. As Rusty would have said, he makes a good food parcel for a few more trees.
Certainly does.
Kind of recycle the nutrients that are in your body, I suppose.
So you can just bury someone in your...
You can actually bury them in your back garden if you want, provided you notify the land registry. He did say to me at one point that he wanted to be buried with his head out the ground so he could keep an eye on things.
Sounds like a New Zealander.
He was, yes, a really good guy.
Come on, let's go!
I think there's a stigma regarding the use of nature. People may believe that it's intrinsically combined with folks and beards and Birkenstocks. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Nature can be the friend of all.
Timing on the bottom, isn't it?
Surely they wouldn't use their children as guinea pigs. But while I'm swimming out here in this beautiful pond, I really don't want to hear the sound of a toilet flushing.
Sheds, attics, cupboards and drawers are emptied into the streets for collection by council and volunteer trucks. Even Father's carpet slippers can't escape. It's a great day for the children, but in Father's opinion, it's carrying things, especially his slippers, a little too far. There are pots and pans, bicycles and beds, tyres and tubes, everything including the kitchen stove.
What's waste has always been a matter of personal taste. Just ask my mum.
I found a story in a magazine about a Chinese chap who invents robots out of scrap materials, bits of sewing machine and various other bits and pieces, and he lives in a small village on the outskirts of Beijing.
I'm very excited about going to China because I'm a big fan of Chinese food, and I don't think anyone does Chinese food better than the Chinese.
He's quite an interesting guy, Wu Lu Yu, and so I thought I'd come and find him. Other television productions would probably have a researcher who would track him down, but I just thought I'd turn up. I mean, it looks like the right village based on the photographs. There's an enormous amount of brick and some piles of sticks. I think I've narrowed it down. Beijing, a city of only 22.5 million people, so how difficult can it be just to point at his photo in a magazine and ask if anyone knows him? Look at his robots. That's my theory. Yep. Over there. He's invented about 47 robots so far, and in the process of doing so, he's burnt down his house and his wife threatened to leave him. Fortunately, other people in the village had a bit of a whip around and they helped him rebuild his house. People are proving very helpful, and I'm fairly sure I'm in the right place because there's a sign that indicates that he may live here. This one's got like a spray gun on it. This is a painting robot, I suspect. have a field day in my dad's shed, what with all his spare parts.
It's all just bits of cogs and little bits of motor and stuff that's essentially spot welded together. Only in China would they invent a robot that's sole function appears to be to smoke a cigarette. I have a feeling it's a health warning. This is a massaging and cooling robot. Very good. This is better than one of those dumb chairs at the airport, that is for sure. In New Zealand, we don't have this level of robotic technology. Very good. Bravo. Yes. Double thumbs. Yes.
OK, so these robots aren't helping the climate as such, but how great is it that he made all this stuff from rubbish? Yay for you, Wooloo you. Sometimes global radar takes me to wonderful places, like today.
Who likes scones?
I do.
You do? Yeah. Kevin?
I love scones.
I thought that 3 fine people such as yourselves deserved fresh scones. These will be the freshest scones you'll have all day, once we get them mixed up. That's all right. Pour, pour, pour. What do you think of that? No, it's rubbish, isn't it? More water.
More water.
I think I've taken the easiest scone mixture in the world and somehow managed to make it wrong. I hope I don't poison them. I think they've turned out reasonably good.
Absolutely. Beautiful.
Now, you're probably wondering why I'm spending some time with some wonderful senior citizens. Well, it's actually the start of an eco story. And it's a story that not many people talk about.
It's also rather delicate.
Right. Well, that's pretty straightforward, isn't it? Oh, I've got the gloves.
You've got the gloves, yep.
Oh, geez, that's... Oh, it's quite an aromatic, isn't it?
We're all well aware that disposable nappies aren't great for the environment, but as our population ages, their sanitary needs are a big issue for landfill. Fortunately, Karen and Carl have turned this growing waste stream into a world-leading business.
I've not had a child, so obviously this is more difficult for me than it might be if you've had a child. This might actually put me off breeding. Sorry, laddies.
I'm processing disposables from newborns and seniors because they're more recyclable than you think, if you put your mind to it.
Right, there we go, another load. Off to Compost Town. Hello. Hi. You must be the beauty and the brains behind the brawn. I'm right.
How are you?
Very good.
It is one of the big debates, isn't it? Cloth versus disposable, and you get those fanatics. I'm only going to use cloth.
It's not necessarily just about the cloth nappies and disposable nappies, it's the incontinence waste. The reality is there's not going to be a cloth alternative for incontinence waste. No. It's a worldwide problem, and hopefully we've come up with a solution.
Yeah. You don't really think about it, do you?
I'm thinking about it now.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes I just think for the convenience factor. I'm a busy guy. Oh. Sometimes when I laugh a lot. The other day I sneezed. Whoops.
Each of our units that we've got here can compost around 15,000 nappies a day. 2.5 tons of waste.
Oh. Or more, depending on what they've eaten.
That's right.
So how long from squirt to scoop?
We work on about 15 days from the start to working through. We try and kill all the pathogens and all the bugs and stuff like that are in it.
So what we end up with is a really, really nutrient and moisture-rich compost. There's still some fine plastic in it. That's just because it hasn't gone through the final screening process.
Do I have to have like a hazardous goods licence to transport that, or is that totally now? That's
it's
totally
all safe.
It's all safe.
Totally safe.
Totally safe. You're like a nappy hero. Hey, Carl.
Fantastic.
You must just look at her yourself and think, geez, I'm punching above my weight. She's brilliant. The Garden City is going greener. Not content with worm farms and old tyres, their composting is high-tech. In fact, they're world leaders at it, thanks to Rob and Living Earth.
Hi, Rob.
Hey, Radar, welcome.
Thank you, thank you. Clearly by the look of those trucks, I'm in the right place.
Yeah, it's a busy morning here in Christchurch today. This is state of the art around the world. What Christchurch has done here is an exemplar for New Zealand. Half the volume of waste to landfill is organic, garden waste or food waste. This is the solution, to get the organic waste stream back onto the soil, to reduce the volume of waste we throw in landfills, and for this to be used for the purpose that nature intended it. It's beautiful stuff. It's this is an ecosystem of mycelium and bacteria and stuff. New Zealand's economy is biological, and that ecosystem of our soil generates all our wealth.
And there we are, burying a perfectly good nutrient in holes. If we don't do that.
I know.
Oh, fantastic. I just want to plant something.
Come on, then.
Someone is going to take that and something good is going to be planted in it. Probably grapes. Wine is going to be made. We can all toast the success.
Up the road is Black Estate, whose 06 Pinot Noir wowed the world. Being organic, they use Rob's compost instead of chemicals.
And so you had to come down here with your little tractor and your shovel.
And we shoveled it on each vine.
54 tonnes of it?
Yeah.
With the organic thing, you notice sort of change in the kind of people that are wanting to be involved in it? People buying it?
Definitely, I think it's a much more accepted kind of thing now. It's not such a hobby for hairy people, and it's about quality, so people just want quality.
Courtesy of the compost.
It really helps, yeah, build up the organic matter in the soil, so healthy soil, gonna get better quality grapes.
Oh, can you eat one? Probably a little aren't you?
It won't be ripe for a couple of months yet, but they'll turn from being green and start redding up.
That is going to be an excellent vintage. Bloody hard work, isn't it?
Very hard work.
And far off distance, the sound of a solitary sheep.
Yes, man.
Which goes really well, obviously, lamb.
And Pinot Noir. Yeah, definitely.
Seen those little miniature sheep?
I haven't seen them, but I've heard about them.
Wouldn't they be great?
Yep.
And you could have them organic as well. You could little miniature spit roasts.
I've always been a big believer in those hoary old phrases, waste not, want not, and one man's trash is another man's treasure. And to that, I'd like to add a third. It's not rubbish, it's a resource. It all depends on how you look at it. We can't afford to live in a throwaway society anymore. There we go. Here's to a bright new future, created from a grand old past. Certainly not going to waste this, and with the rest of the bottle left, neither am I going to go wanting. Sunshine with a hint of grass clippings.
Right, before I forget, next week, I'm running my own global experiment to find out about pollution. That takes me from New Zealand to Tonga, where rubbish is cluttering the beaches. Then on to Rwanda, where they've banned the plastic bag. See you then.